Okay, so this is the June Memory Lab Network, June 2021 Memory Lab Network webinar. And we had to reschedule what we had planned on time-based correctors until July, but I still wanted to meet and make sure I just cover some things. I realized that I've sort of been updating a lot on our website and various other websites and platforms with resources, but it's tough. And then I will drop a link in the Slack, but then I think it's very easy for all this information to get lost, and especially as we are all starting to probably get back into the swing of things at our libraries, and maybe starting back up again with the memory lab, and yeah, picking up where we left off, and sort of refreshing where our brains of where all the information is that you can find. And so hopefully, and then, you guys can ask me any questions and I'll try and answer them today. So I'm gonna just share my screen. In a second. Okay, so the best place to start with our resources, and these are all publicly available resources, so please share them with others. Obviously, there's the Slack that we all have access to, so check that out too if you're looking for something specific, but I'm going to go through what we have out there at memorylabnetwork.org, which is our website, and it's built using GitHub pages, actually. So really, it's that if you type in memorylabnetwork.org, we pay for that URL. So it just forwards you basically to the GitHub, which is URL, which is memorylabnetwork.github.io. So just FYI, that's why you see that up there. But just for very easy reference, you can just type memorylabnetwork.org. And this is our landing page. I try and make the landing page really obvious, or maybe just simple is more the way I want to put this for folks who don't have any clue about what we're about. And you can scroll down to kind of get the idea of what is this about? A memory lab is these three key components. I foresee people regularly, do I have a memory lab near me? Or, I have some personal archives, but I live here. Where is the closest either memory lab or organization that can help me with my personal archiving? And or I'm just keeping this map so that we can all make connections too with people nearby or organizations nearby that we might be able to resource share. So just since we have, excuse me, just since we have two folks from California here today, just sort of, you can kind of zoom in and see there's different color coding, of course, that I've done, but we've got our Memory Lab Network partners in the light blue. There's other organizations like Bay Area Video Coalition, and another library that has a memory lab or memory lab type, they call it a retro tech, right? So, and then of course, California Revealed, which is based out of Sacramento, but really is for the whole state. So these are just a lot of different ways to connect with your local community that's doing personal archiving. And we'll also jump over to Virginia. Let's see what's going on in Virginia. Not too much, but there will be. I'm sure that there are stuff. That's the other thing. If you know of anything coming soon, Chesapeake Central Library, if you know of anything that I don't have on here, please let me know so I can add it, because this is definitely a work in progress always. Yeah, so that is that. And then we have at the bottom this if you'd like to start a memory lab in your community, please visit our resources page, which this links you out to that. But another way that you can get to our resources is through our menu, which is at the top right. And I'll jump to resources first. That's really where the bulk of everything is. And so the deep dive that I have here is a Google Doc. I've mentioned it before, but it's basically where I take a lot of the resources that's on this page and elsewhere, and I just am really trying to, even though it's so hard to build a memory lab the same every time, and it's so hard to write like granular lists or like step-by-step lists, like first do this, then do that, because each place, each community, each library is so different and unique and has its own workflows and whatnot, that it's hard to do that. But I try to go through and at least think of, especially like building foundational knowledge. So start here with this knowledge and then work your way through. I try to like say how long each section will take you to watch the videos that I have, and the lectures, and to do any exercises. Obviously it's different for everyone, but just to give people an idea, just kind of thinking about how on earth would anyone learn everything that we've been teaching our network partners, and doing it in a way that doesn't kind of leave them hanging or anything. Because yeah, the main thing about the deep dive, I want it to help our network partners, obviously, but our network partners are helping me to build that documentation too, because as we learn, as we be like, oh, this worked, this didn't, oh, here's something I came up against, then I add that into there, and so that it can be made available for others that aren't in the network, much like the California Memory Lab group, their own network, but they're using a lot of the deep dive documentation too. So, and hopefully there'll be others out there, because that's the whole point of the Memory Lab network, is to build this model and to put as much resources out there for folks to build their own memory labs. So that, I'm not sure we'll get too deep into the deep dive because it is so deep, but maybe we will, we'll see. There's also a list of community and personal archiving projects that I'm keeping. Let me know if you know of any. But we're on that list, just trying to think of, other projects that are doing similar work, so we can all keep in touch and make sure we're not we're not reinventing the wheel or anything. And these are documents that are either related to the Memory Lab network. So we have our National Digital Stewardship resident documentation that built DCPL's Memory Lab, and the final report, which is the foundation for the Memory Lab network, because that's what built our lab. There's a lot of research and finding in the report and from the blog of Jamie Mears, the resident, that really helped formulate the grant application to IMLS, which is this Memory Lab Network IMLS grant application, and which is what we received in order to make the Memory Lab Network. So I also have our DCPL Memory Lab LibGuide, so you can just check that out as an example. I've been getting this more often as more folks learn about the Memory Lab Network and ask, ooh, are you doing another round of asking for more applications and going to fund more people? And we're hoping to maybe add 2 more people, do another 3rd cohort of just 2 partners. But in order for people to prepare themselves and know what we'll be asking for any applicants, I put the first cohort call for partner applications and the second cohort one as well. So it's basically a Google Doc that you can kind of click through out to the Google form, which is what we use for applications. So please refer that to anyone that asks. We have our cohort 1 and cohort 2 bootcamp training. If you click on these links here, it will take you out to basically the itinerary that we had for our in-person well, for what we called our boot camp training for our different cohorts, which the cohort 2, we did a lot of boot camp. We did a lot of lectures beforehand. So we have those in there as well, recordings of that. And anything that, that we could kind of put in there, slides, handouts, and things I put in there as links. And then probably the biggest thing that we have and that I will click out to are our professional development webinars. So these are, webinars, virtual seminars for our MemLab network partners initially that we're doing today, right? And so this is really their professional development, but they're supposed to add to the knowledge of our MemLab network partners so that they can run their MemLab better, so that they can just learn something that will help them to help their communities better around personal archiving mostly, and community archiving, oral histories, a lot of that kind of connected and sometimes like less directly related to personal archiving, but still surrounding this like community memory and memory work of our of personal archives and communities. So it's a long list. I basically list these in order of when they happened. So you can see like May 2018, June 2018, those were our first, way back there then for our first cohort. So there are a lot of different topics you can see here: digital storage strategy, a crash course, there was oral history. We have things on community archiving toolkit, assessment toolkit, audiovisual disaster and recovery preparedness. We've got this great thing. The last Morgan Morell webinar was your circuit board and you, which also include Blake from our Colorado partner, Pueblo County, City County, Colorado. And I have up till our April, because I still am waiting on some slides for our May webinar, but our May webinar was on the cloud and just talking about that type of technology, so you can talk more about it with your community, understand it a little bit better, because people always ask about the cloud. So a lot of this is just going a little bit further into these topics and learning more, and like how you can potentially apply that and bring it to your community. So those are our professional development webinars, and I have the links to the YouTube videos there, and then also links out to the slides if you want to look at the slides. These personal archiving class slide decks, I really want to get the word out more about these. These are just Google slides that we have at DC Public Library that we've made that for classes that we teach to our public on personal archiving. So we have the title of the class, Your Digital Afterlife, and then a class description. And this is more for what you would maybe put on like the Facebook post or on your website. So we're trying to do as much as possible so that you don't have to do that. So like this one, you can see that, what will happen to your digital assets and accounts, social media accounts and things like that when you pass away. You'll learn how to plan, prepare, protect your digital memories across multiple platforms. So if we click on this, and they're also Google Slides because I do try to keep them up to date. It's been a little while because we haven't taught a lot of these classes recently, since 2019 really. So we try and keep these updated, and basically you can just, if you use Google, you can, even if you don't, you can just download a PowerPoint version and then make it your own, or you can make a copy and make it your own. We have pretty detailed notes in the notes section that, so you can teach the class and any of the classes. So we have your digital afterlife, personal archiving with Facebook, digital preservation. So this is a good intro to digital preservation, but the focus is on digital photos. And it takes a while for a lot of these to load because they can be rather long. So that's another thing that depending on what you're used to, the length of classes for your community, you can turn this into a series of classes, because this one I think is, maxes out at 44 slides. Of course, there are some references, but I'm hoping to also, this is very specific with digital photos, as I mentioned, but I would love to also have some digital preservation of your audio, and then focus on saving your audio, focus on saving, digital audio specifically, focus on saving your digital video, because then we do have preserve your home movies class, but this is dealing more with physical items. And this also, we have a zine, a preservation zine that you can print out and hand out at this class that kind of goes with this, which I'll show you in a second, our zines. But so this is absolutely more about helping people find what they have in their collections and understanding, like, what's the difference between film, different sizes of film, and then video. Oh, there's so many different video formats. So it's really important that people know what they have, so that they don't bring it into the memory lab thinking that they can digitize it when it's a high 8 and you can only do VHS. So that's really important. And then we go through and talk about, identification is a huge part, but then assessing the condition, how to best store it, a little bit about digitization, not tons, and then like documenting and metadata, and preserving that surrounding your collections. So one thing I wanted to point out that's new is this digital archiving for artists, best practices to care for your creative output. So this really came about from thinking about who your audiences are. It really changes how you're going to teach classes. So if you have a large artist community, then this is something that you will probably want to take a look at. Make sure I can see the chat. Yes, Jonathan, I hope Montana gets a memory lab too. And yes, Super 8, but see that, Jonathan, Super 8 tapes, it's like, what does that mean? Are they, is it Super 8 film or are they high 8 tapes? So that's where, I don't think you can do either of them, but it is important to know the difference. So hopefully that slide deck would help show the difference between if it's video versus film. And if it doesn't, if you feel like there's something unclear about any of the resources I have, these are absolutely meant to be, made better. And that's what I am absolutely looking to the network and others to do, to help me do, make sure everything's clear. Because sometimes I'm like, it's just been so long since I've had to learn this, and there's different better ways to learn things. So I value your input. So here's the digital archiving for artists PowerPoint. And it's, once again, like very, very focused on coming from an art perspective and thinking about being, it's like personal archiving, but then also a lot of times this is people's jobs, but this is their livelihood. As well as it's like their own personal stuff, but it's their artwork, so it's their livelihood because they're artists. But then it's still on them to preserve their artwork. So this is where it has an added level, going a little bit like further from personal archiving. So that's why I felt that it was really important to start addressing these needs in our communities. and to teach people how to be their own art conservator, so that hopefully someday they'll have their collection, they'll have their collections in such great state that then once MoMA, starts calling and says, "Oh, we want to acquire stuff," you have it all ready for them, and they'll be so impressed. So be your own art conservator, right? So it's still following these very similar personal archiving basics of inventory, appraising, organizing, storing, document, describe, and then providing access. But with specifics to a lot of the stuff you could just use this, and if you like this, like just use it for your intro to digital personal digital archiving. But some differences I'd like to point out is in the documentation and describing. Really gets into the like documenting your artwork, which is something that I know gets missed a lot in with artists, especially if they have any kind of like interactive part of their piece, but just really making sure that you can like rebuild what you create if you have to, because if you break it down from one exhibit and you put it up again in another gallery or another exhibit, you want to make sure, or let's say you pass away, that kind of thing, like you want to make sure that you have as much documentation in order to recreate your work as possible, if that's what you want. Of course, there's obviously like a lot of artwork out there that's very ephemeral and meant to be. So that's also something that you might want to document, though. It's just like, yep, it's one time and it's over, but we have documentation that it happened, and that was the intention of it. So you can see that there is a lot of information here on documentation. I feel like it gets like there's 65 slides here, so it gets very long. But once again, this is really focusing in on a specific type of audience. So I think that you probably have a more engaged attendance of people. So it might be something that you would take to out to another local artist organization, or just partner somehow. But I really wanted to make sure I point that out because it's so new and I'm still kind of adding a little bit to it or just tweaking some things. Hopefully I'll take out some slides, but I just felt like there's so much in there that's still very important. So those are our personal archiving slides. I really hope more people use them, trying to do a lot of the work for others so that they can focus on doing the teaching part of it, which is a lot of work. And then the Zine Library, in case anyone isn't aware that a zine is a non-commercial handmade publication that basically it's just really cheap to make a bunch of them. You just print them on a regular printer, and sometimes you just fold and hand them out. Sometimes you have to fold, cut a little bit and staple, but it's really cheap to put together these informational zines and then hand that out to your public at classes, at events. It's good not just to give them information, but also very handy information that they'll keep with them and refer to later. But then also it's really great as just further marketing for your memory lab, because it just reminds people, oh, I need to do that, or I need to look more into my memory lab and book that appointment now, or take that class, etc. So I just wanted to point out, like, we've added a few, some that have to do with archiving, posting protest photos and videos. And with the zines, a lot of times there's a view option, just like the better way to view it digitally. And then there's a print option, because it's gonna look very different printing versus just viewing like this here. So you can check out our zines. Well, and they're not all ours, actually, I should be specific. A lot of these are from other organizations that have put them together, but they're just so fun and so easy and have such good information. And people really love them. They love to walk away with this thing in their hand. So if you're doing anything around, sound, there's a lot of sound zines that are out there. We have the last, but of course not least on here, are DC Public Library's 3 zines, which this one, Maximum Preservation Volume 1, is all about your physical preservation of pretty much anything. It's a little paper-based, but mostly it just talks about good storage practices. physical storage practices. The second one is all about good digital practices for your personal digital archives. And then the third one I already mentioned is the home movie preservation basics zine that you can also hand out at classes and home movie day events and things like that. So that's that. And then I have made video tutorials on a variety of other topics that I have links out to here. And I hope to make more soon as I get more equipment, but hopefully in the next month or two, I'll be getting different pieces of equipment that I can kind of just do tutorials on for you all that then you would potentially most likely be purchasing as well in the coming months after that. So those are our video tutorials. And so these are our resources. And, you know, I really encourage you to take a look, to ask me if you are looking for something specific and I can point you in that direction, but just also please refer other people to these resources. I wanted to also share that we do have an about page too. A lot of times people are just very confused about what the MemLab Network is. So this could be a good thing to send to anyone if they ever ask, is our about page, where we kind of set up that we're this grant funded project. And then the model that we're basing it off is ours, and here's more info on that. And then it lists the cohort 1, cohort 2, people on the advisory board. Thank you, Institute of Museum and Library Services for funding all of this. And so that's just something that could be a good resource to put out there. We also have a blog that has been dormant since February 1st, 2020. And it was we don't have too many posts. So we really started it up in 2019 anyway, where we talked with our first cohort about what it's like 1 year post their in-person boot camp. But the plan was to visit multiple of our partner organizations that have memory labs. And so we got 3 of them in. But then, you know, obviously we have our second cohort here, and did a little brief blog post on our second cohort in-person training. There you guys are. So that was the last. And then of course it was the pandemic. So we're hoping to do more. Please keep that in mind as we go forward, that I might ask you for nothing long, just, you know, a few paragraphs on your memory lab, on your experience. So just keep that in mind. And go to look at my chat. So Jonathan says we have partnerships with local art organization, the art tutorial. Cool, that's great, that's great. Yeah, I feel like, please let me know any feedback as well so I can change it, update it, make it better. And Suzanne says she's zine folding challenged. I understand. I have to like rethink it every time. And also that's why I make mine really easy now. I just do the ones where you just like fold it and you don't have to staple or cut anything. You're just like, all right, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And then, yes, of course. Yes, oral history. So Isis says, you mentioned something about oral history. Yeah, that's a very good point, that it might be neat, I don't know where or how I would do this, but to sort of put topics together on, like, you know, group a bunch of our resources we created around certain topics like oral history, because I'm going to go to our resources again, and it's taking a minute. There we go. So specifically in our professional development webinars, yeah. I guess if we just did a quick oral history, yeah, it's just showing two, but so we have this Creating Oral Histories webinar that we recorded in September of 2018 from Mary Mannix, who has done a lot of oral history creation at Frederick County Public Libraries in Maryland here. And so we have the webinar with Mary, and then also the slides are there too. So that's very specific around creating oral histories and just like a very intro, like oral history 101, how to do that. And then we also have this other oral history webinar that we did recently, specifically talking with Zach Ellis, who is the head of Their Story, which is a oral history tool to record and then also do a lot of the description, transcription, and filtering it into like, it basically like works with a lot of other platforms to do, while it's focused on creation, it's also keeping in mind all those other aspects of like access and preservation, and trying to build that into the process so that they're all interconnected. So he talks a lot about that and how that's done. I also want to say, even though it's not like popping up on here, the Queen's Memory Project, I know that was in our first cohort. Queen's Memory Project, there you go. You can, I recommend that one too, if you're looking to learn more about other really cool projects that incorporate oral histories in their communities. And they have a lot of other aspects that are very overlapping with memory labs, and they will have their own memory lab soon too, in a joint project with their with the university there. So I recommend that one too. Oh, that was right after the Creating Oral Histories one with Mary. So perfect. Yeah, is there anything, Isis, that you were, any specific thing on oral histories you were looking for? Because maybe I can address that in the future.
No, we weren't even going on that direction. And then last week, so we have two components of our memory lab that we're doing, which is the on-site memory lab, which training for that articulating collection as well of smaller like scanners and like those portable like converters and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So people can check them out and take it home to do it.
Okay, gotcha.
Into associations, and they were like, hey, we want to do more of oral history, because we've done some oral histories in the past, like some oral history projects, and then they want to do more of that. So
I think I got.
so I was shopping, but I was just see if you had some previous things so we can base off of, or we can look at, because I think the interest would be, let's say we buy some cameras and we check those out, or people's needs are, and then they would take that, and then they could do it themselves. So we wouldn't be necessarily on site with them as they record their things. So I was just wondering if there is any, like you have the beautiful for people who are recording, as in like converting their pictures, you know, rather like these parts of oral history. So that's what I wanted to know.
I was only catching, I don't know if it's my internet connection. I think it is my internet connection, that I was only catching so much about that, but it was about like recording. And I see here in the chat, you said a local historical association wanted to work with us on that a bit. And Suzanne does say that she'd be willing to help with setup as well, as she has way more experience than me, and that's is where connecting people with their expertise is good. Jonathan, they have an oral history component there at Tulare with the mobile lab, and then using lavalier mic with Audacity. But yeah, Audacity is the free software, absolutely, which is also what we use to just capture audio. So we have that workflow. If you're capturing an analog tape, we use Audacity, but you also can also use that for recording. It's free. Yeah, so please reach out to Suzanne too for anything like that. And if there's anything that I can kind of help with, I would absolutely try. The recording, the webinar with Mary is definitely more about a little bit about equipment, but not so much, and probably wouldn't be super necessarily relevant. You know, equipment changes so often, but it's definitely a lot about thinking like logistical things of the best questions to ask, and you know, how to set up a good interview environment, and a little bit about their project where they actually train high school students a lot of times to conduct the interviews with folks. So they're trying to do this like intergenerational experience of teaching the high school students about history and about creating oral histories, which is a skill, and then also bringing in elders and helping to preserve the stories and things like that. So yeah. And I will say also we have the I think a connected webinar, although it's audio visual, I would say it's very important for oral histories as well, is the expanding accessibility, audiovisual accessibility, where Emily Vinson from University of Houston Libraries comes in and talks about computer generated audio transcriptions for audio files, for video files. And that's more about accessibility, like closed captions, but it also can be very much applied to oral histories and generating transcripts for that. I felt like that one was a really good, I learned a lot from that one. So that's also a good thing. Yeah, so those are our resources that I wanted to share today. Don't want to take up too much more of your time. And but I would also, if there's any other questions about anything, anything at all, I can, I'm here.
I had a moving towards getting our mobile app up and running, and I'm going to be having I'm looking at doing the classes, but instead of having it in person, we'll host them on a YouTube channel forward, where we have explained basic archiving and, you know, the digital afterlife. Do you think that would be like a direction that a lot of us could go?
Sorry, I'm stopping my video just in case that might help. Can you say the question one more time? I heard that you said that you're gonna put things on, you're gonna do classes via YouTube.
Yeah, it would just be like a PowerPoint presentation with narration,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can put it on YouTube, and then that way we because we're moving very slowly and trying to get things, you know, back to normal, if anything is ever back to normal necessarily.
Yeah.
But so I'm looking at doing that, and the other part of it is more of a time concern, because I have other duties. So I'm looking at trying to do one where it's a low impact, where I just create a video where you know, people can view it at their convenience, and then and also trying to do the training too, where if I could do the training on how to use the equipment, and then I think Blake was doing that too. So something similar, so that way people can do it at their convenience, and then there would be just like a little test, you know, that they would have to fill out a little form.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that's kind of a way that a lot of us could go?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely.
With in regard to educating the public?
Mm-hmm. I think that that's a great way to go. I know that, yeah, a mix of written out, you know, documentation for the lab with like screenshots and then, you know, do this, then that written out along with a video showing it, I think would be really helpful for folks. But then, yeah, teaching the classes just by just recording it first. I mean, the only thing you're missing is like a Q&A part, but honestly, that, like you said, you could just have the recording up there, and then it could be like you do like a, if you have questions, send them our way sort of thing, just like anything. And because I've taught a lot of these personal archiving classes online live, and there's a lot of times not too many questions. I think people are just like absorbing a lot of the information, and it's just, yeah. So I think that having a pre-recorded YouTube just with a contact info for people to send their questions if they have any would be great. Yeah, I think Houston too, Houston Public Library, they tried to do like a live thing, and it just, there also just hasn't been a lot of live recording attendance from what I'm seeing for a lot, not just Houston, but like DCPL too. I think people really want to watch things on their own time, so that would be helpful for that. Yeah, and if you have it up, please share it with us on the Slack and things. Okay, well, any other questions? Thank you for coming. Really appreciate your being here. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, but we'll definitely have Morgan and talk about time-based correctors in July. So I hope to see you both there, and looking forward to it. So take care, good luck with everything, and just email me or Slack me if you need anything.